Welcome back to Yahoo Finance Live. Now, Camp Ethereal 2022 is the key event at Jackson Hole, where blockchain technologists, startups, entrepreneurs, and investors discuss the latest in decentralization. Well, our next guest was there, and he joins me now, Dan Roberts, Decrypt Editor-in-Chief. Good to have you back on the show. Now, as I mentioned, you were at Camp Ethereal 2022. What topics created the most buzz, and what were your biggest takeaways?
Well, sure, Rochelle, and thanks for having me back on. First, I'd start by saying a lot of the attendees at this event, which Decrypt helped plan this year, had come straight from ETH Denver. And after Ethereal in Wyoming, they went straight to South by Southwest. And I just think it's a reminder that the crypto conference circuit is back in action. In fact, I personally am not at South by in Austin, but I've heard that it's basically another NFT and DAO and crypto conference. So that is just to say that a lot of the tech events, I think, are becoming infiltrated and full of Web3 types, which, boy, I've been writing about Bitcoin since 2011. This was not the case just a few short years ago. So I think it shows how much this stuff has really gone mainstream during the pandemic. At Ethereal in Wyoming, a lot of the chatter was about the rise of DAOs. It's sort of like everywhere you look, everyone is forming a DAO. And just to remind Yahoo Finance viewers, a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. I tend to think that's a little bit of a misnomer because they're not autonomous. They don't run on smart contracts. They run from human beings voting together. But for better or worse, that's the term right now. They're really just digital organizations. They're groups of crypto people who pool together their funds with a common purpose. And everyone you talk to has a DAO now. Some of these DAOs are run on NFTs, which I think is an interesting example of the use case of NFTs. They're not just digital art. Some of them now act as a membership pass, a ticket into a club. And some of them have pretty lofty, ambitious aims of what they want to pull off. You know, we just spoke to at Decrypt Andrew Yang, who has a lobbying DAO, hoping to spur on change in Washington, D.C. using a DAO. So that was probably the number one thing. And then, of course, you had all the usual talk about crypto prices. The market has been pretty blasé, even though it's really gone mainstream. And even though the Russia-Ukraine conflict is in many ways a crypto story. You know, Ukraine has raised tens of millions of dollars in crypto donations. So a lot to talk about, a lot going on, a lot of growth in this space, a lot of traditional VCs that were at Ethereal looking to make deals and invest in crypto startups.
So then as you look at how now we're seeing crypto and blockchain, as you mentioned, integrated into some of these other bigger conferences as well. And then, of course, against current events, you mentioned Russia and Ukraine. How much did this conflict change the conversation about crypto's use and its potential when you look at what's happening now?
I think it depends on whom you ask. It's been really fascinating to track, you know, the use case of crypto for donations to Ukraine, faster, cheaper, instant. You know, in the old days, you would do Western Union and it would take 5 days and you'd pay a giant fee. That use case is hard to argue with and has been clear. And yet, I think a lot of places, whether it's individuals who are already crypto skeptics or news outlets that are, have kind of cherry picked and covered it from the angle of Russia could use crypto to evade sanctions. Well, there's very little evidence of that happening so far. That hasn't been the case. And so it just kind of tracks the way a lot of other news is covered, right? You cover it in the way that fits the view you already have. So to answer your question, I think we still have people who look at crypto and they say that it is in some way shady or it's in some way scammy and it's a bad thing. And what we say to that angle is, the tech is agnostic. The tech can be used for good or for ill.
Right.
So you see people focusing on the fact that crypto and also DAOs have raised money to donate to Ukraine to help in this conflict, the good, depending on your perspective. And then we see people saying, well, you know, crypto is semi-anonymous and it's not fully transparent because on the other end, once you donate crypto, the crypto is converted to fiat and government currency and could be used for anything. And that's less transparent. And so it's bad. So all that is just a long way of saying it. It's fascinating to me how the narratives have evolved. As I said, I first wrote about Bitcoin in 2011. And to this day, I mean, now it's been trading 13 years. You still have people who, for whatever reason, they'll never be convinced that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have any interesting or valuable use case.
And as you mentioned, cash can be used just as nefariously as anything else. I do quickly want to get to regulation. Obviously, you have President Biden's executive order, and then you also have this proposal coming out of the EU who are trying to have this proposal cover some of these assets that aren't covered by traditional finance laws. They list a couple of objectives, including legal certainty, supporting innovation. They want more levels of consumer investor protection, and they also want to ensure financial stability. What is your take, just very quickly, on these regulations coming out?
Well, in many ways, the legislation proposed by the EU Parliament mirrors the Biden executive order. It's basically a call to action. It's still nothing completely substantive of this is going to happen. It's let's make something happen. And in fact, we just spoke about the Ethereal event. Joe Lubin, who is a co-founder of Ethereum and is the CEO of Consensus, I asked him on stage his take on the Biden executive order, and he said that it was basically like, hey, all you agencies, figure it out. So for years, we've seen different US agencies from the CFTC to the SEC to even the IRS kind of jockeying to figure out, well, who gets to regulate crypto? And what we're now seeing from the EO is just, well, let's all get on the same page and get one roadmap for how to regulate it. And the EU Parliament plan is basically the same. It's like, let's protect consumers and let's figure out how we're going to put safeguards in place. That is not the same as let's shut down crypto. Crypto is bad. And so I think many people in the industry saw the executive order as a good thing, because just the fact that it exists is a sign that the people in power and government recognize that crypto is a thing and it's going to remain. It's not going to go away and collapse. And so we need to get this right.
We'll certainly be keeping a watch on that. Thank you, as always, Dan Roberts there, Decrypt Editor-in-Chief. Thank you for your time this afternoon.